Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode. And today's guest is a 3-time Canadian natural bodybuilding champion. He's an author, he's a huge advocate for natural nutrition and training methods. He's the president of BiOptimizers, and it's a company that helps fix your gut health. And he's also the host of the Awesome Health podcast. And it's such an honor to have Wade Lightheart on the show today. Welcome.
So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So you're the very first bodybuilding champion. We might have had one more, but I think she did shows, but I don't think she was like a bodybuilding champion. But tell us how you got started in the world of bodybuilding.
Well, I'm getting up there. So when I was 15 years old, 3 significant things happened to me in a very short period of time. One, my parents moved to an extremely rural place. It was 5 miles to my nearest neighbor. Literally lived on a dirt road of a mountain. Had to take a snowmobile out to the bus in the winter. It was very rural. And so I had a lot of time on my hands, and I was very frustrated at 15 for caretakers of this resort, and it was awesome. But for a 15-year-old, it was like devastating. So I had no control of my life. Second thing happened was my sister was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, which is a form of cancer of the lymph nodes. And she was 4 years my senior. And over the next 4 years, I watched her go through the medical model before she died at the age of 22. That had a big impression on me. Yeah, about health and, it's not a guarantee and all these kind of things that you don't really think about when you're a teenager unless you've been in one of those situations. And then the third thing that happened at the same time, this all happened in a very short period of time. My sister handed me a bodybuilding magazine. It was a muscle and fitness cover. It had Troy Zucolato. I can still remember it today. He was a blonde guy who won Mr. California. He had these 2 pretty girls with him. And, being 15-year-old guy going, looking at this guy, I'm like, wow, maybe if I get those muscles, I can, be around girls like that. And, very rural because there was no internet. This is how you got communicated. So Joe Weider hooked me. And I had nothing else to do, so I literally built a gym in my barn with sawhorses and pulleys and put, things under tractor tires. And it was like Rocky IV gym, where he fought the Drago. And I started training, and there was the one thing in my life that I could get control of. And so I think in a world where, looking back now, that there was all these things that were out of my control, a lot of stress, a lot of things that I didn't have the tools to deal with. This was a way that I could actually physically see changes in my own body. So I was able to take control of myself by training. And a lot of people think of, bodybuilding is really the only sport which you can definitely change how your physicality looks. In other words, if you're skinny, you can have more muscles. If you're kind of chunky, you can get skinnier. You can change your shoulders. You can actually shape. And so me, it was kind of an artistic component as well, like a artist slaps clay on the body and puts things together. I was like, well, I have to do these exercises and eat these foods. And then from there, I went and studied exercise physiology at the University of New Brunswick. And from there, I went on to mentor under a lot of people. And over 16 years, got to won my first national championship and got to represent our country at the Mr. Universe contest. And the big thing about that was I was doing quote unquote everything right. I had total discipline on my diet. I had the best coach in the industry. I had, and literally getting ready for that contest, I felt terrible. The whole, I was in contest shape for 9 months. You shouldn't stay. That's like very, very low body fat levels, unhealthy body fat levels. And after the Mr. Universe contest, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks.
Wow.
Right. So I said, I went from Mr. Universe to Mr. Marshmallow.
That's funny.
And now I had another hook that was really important. And I think this is what relates to your listeners today. And that was this crisis I experienced was the greatest opportunity of my life. And I didn't know it. And it certainly didn't feel that way, but it set the course for the rest of my life in the fact that I went and met a doctor. His name was Dr. Michael O'Brien around the same time. He was in his 70s. He was so vibrant. He had so much energy. His eyes and his skin were glowing, and he was just I was like, this guy could just kick my butt. Like, what am I doing wrong? He's doing something right. I'm doing something wrong. It was obvious. And I went to him. I said, Dr. O'Brien, I said, what happened? You're so physically vital. You look so good. You have so much energy, and I'm supposed to know all this stuff. And here I am, gained 42 pounds of fat and water. Like, what's going on? He says, Wade, you learned how to build the body from the outside in. What you haven't learned is how to build the body from the inside.
Wow, that's so good. I'm going to write that down. That's a good one. I love that so much.
Yeah, and so basically he put me on a whole protocol of rebuilding my gut health, enzymes and probiotics, and I changed some of my dietary practices, and within 6 months I got my physique back. But better than that, I felt amazing. And I realized the mistakes that so many people are making in their quest for what I call cosmetic perfection. In other words, most of the advertising, most of the marketing, most of the dietary components or recommendations are made to achieve a certain cosmetic look. So we celebrate actors or movie stars or athletes, and we see if they have a high level of fitness, we think that, oh, they're healthy. But oftentimes they're compromising their health to look a certain way, and they're going to pay the piper later, just like I did.
So was that the transition when you started transitioning into the world of gut health and digestion? Was that when you had gained those 42 pounds and felt like you were Mr. Marshmallow?
Correct. So it's exactly it, because I realized there was this whole area that I knew nothing about. Now, keep in mind, I'd been studying this field for 16 years. I had the best mentor in the world. Nobody was talking about this, 20 years ago. And so from there, I like I said, I fixed myself. I started teaching other people. We did a natural bodybuilding course and coached over 15,000 people worldwide. My business partner and I, Matt Gallant. And we got a lot of feedback and a lot of data from virtually every walk of life. Guys, girls, seniors, teenagers, everything in between, and from that, we started to realize there is a simple way to kind of rebuild your system, regardless of what your diet is, regardless of your genetics. Like, my business partner is a keto guy. I'm a vegetarian. It doesn't matter. Maybe 1% of our people we've coached are bodybuilders or strength athletes. Most people are just regular people who want to look better and are struggling. They're struggling. They don't know why, because your gut health and your hormone health and your brain function are all tied together in this unique chain. And if your gut's off, it can throw your brain off. That sets in negative cycles and emotional cycles. That can throw cortisol off. That makes you hold weight. There's inflammation cycles. There's all these different things. And so the gut becomes the second brain of our lives. And when you rechange that, it's amazing how it has a cascade on our thinking and on our hormone health. And of course, ultimately on how we look and how we feel. So
I know you offer a lot through BiOptimizers. Tell people what that is, first of all, and talk about this Gluten Guardian that you talk about.
Yeah, so here's what I recognized is, when I had my health crisis, I was literally 31 years old. I'm supposed to be in the peak of my health, and I had this health crisis, and I was following all the best people. I had the training, I had the education, I had all this stuff, and I realized, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to everybody else who's out there just, reading the latest thing online or whatever? Like, what are they going to do? How are they supposed to know this if they're a mom or their pop or they're, they're working their day? And so we started out as a bodybuilding company, but we realized what happened is people started to see me in my health clinic in Vancouver. I ran a holistic health clinic, and people were coming in and they'd have skin conditions. And I'd say, well, let's fix your gut, and their skin condition would go away. Or they'd have depression. I said, well, let's fix your gut, and their depression would go away. And then there was cancer people coming to me after cancer treatments, and they were feeling terrible. I was like, well, let's fix your gut, rebuild your gut health, and get your energy back. And all these things are coming back to the gut. So then one day, Matt and I were sitting there, my business partner, we're like, we're not a bodybuilding company. We fix digestion. That's what we do. And what happened is we recognized that right now, 12% of the people who enter into a hospital is a gastrointestinal related illness. That's 12% of hospital visits. Over a decade ago, it was $150 billion in hospital costs for people. And we all know what it's like when our gut health. So we decided, let's focus on this. Let's expand it. And one of the areas that you're talking about is gluten. So we all know these gluten-free diets have been the rage for maybe the last 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's expanding. And the question is, well, why isn't, we've been eating bread for centuries.
Yes.
Right? Why suddenly is there this challenge? And the short version of that is number one, we've been growing monoculture foods for the last 70 years, since World War II. And that's caused the use of herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, mineral deficient soils, genetically modified foods. And all of these things interrupt our natural digestive capacity. Genetically, most of us don't have the ability to break down gluten. See, gluten is a protein. Mm-hmm. And it's been somewhat altered over the last years because of the use of pesticides and chemicals and all these sort of things. For example, the US Congress in 1900 was concerned about the degradation of protein in wheat. Wheat was 90% protein then, it's less than 7% now. And what the 7% left is undigestible. It's like have you ever seen a baseball cover that, like a baseball that's the cover's been kind of ripped off of it? And you can see all the thread inside. Well, gluten is just like that. Gluten is the leather cover, and all the good stuff in the food is inside. The problem is that cover requires a specific enzyme that most people don't produce in the body, that they don't have the gut bacteria to produce this enzyme to break down that food. So when they eat that food, it now becomes a toxin. It now causes inflammation. It now makes your tummy hurt, and it now feeds bad bacteria. And so we looked all over the place, and we found that there was this enzyme, which is called DPP4, dipeptidyl peptidase 4, that actually breaks down this particular protein. And so the good news is we understood the use of enzymes. We understood the use of probiotics to get gut health, but now we were able to take a specific enzyme and create a formula that would allow people to kind of, eat their gluten and get away with it. Because we go to social events or we go to a restaurant, and if you're really sensitive, even if you're trying to avoid it, chances are the food is contaminated. Like things like mustard can have it, soy sauce can have it. It can be in the wine that you're drinking. Like there's all these things, and then all of a sudden, why did I puff up like in the morning when I woke up, or why is there bags under my eyes, or why do I have a headache, or why does my stomach hurt? Well, that's because you had a reaction to this. And so hey, we can solve that. We can provide that. And my mom makes the best bread in the world. Believe me, it's amazing. And I can go in there and eat that bread and not have any bad reactions because I love the taste of it.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. And so tell everyone, what is your website?
Yeah, our website is BiOptimizers.com. And if they go to BiOptimizers.com/wasteaway, we're a very education-focused company. So when they go to that link, what's going to happen is they're going to have a little course. I created a little course called the Awesome Health Course. And basically, I took all the experts that I learned from over the last 30 years and did little summaries, 5 to 15-minute videos, so that you can go in there and find out. You can find about gluten enzymes. You can find about the right water to drink. You can find about minerals. You can find all these little things in quick little snippets that you can watch on your phone while you're waiting for your kids to come out of hockey practice or out of ballet practice or whatever. And it's really quick and easy, and it's a great education for them. So people can go deep. They can find out where I learned this stuff. And so I'm very heavy on education.
Wow, that is awesome. So that is incredible. Thank you so much for that. So I know that you openly talk about being a vegetarian. And so what caused you to make this decision? Because that is also this is what I love about you. Because it's like, man, I've never met a bodybuilder in my entire life. You're going to be my very first one that I've met that's a vegetarian. I mean, have you met anyone that's a vegetarian that's a bodybuilder?
Well, now it's much more common. When I decided to go this route back in 2001, so we're getting up on 18 years, well, 17 years now, and nobody was doing it. And I always thought I was crazy and this was nuts. And basically what happened is I was a meat eater like everybody else. I grew up that way and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not one of those vigilante vegans or anything. I'm not, I just choose the diet that's right for you. But I read a book called The Holy Science, and it was on the processes of the human body. It was written by a guru in India. And I was like, well, this guy's got I like he explained the digestive system. He explained the nervous system. He explained our teeth are responsive to fruits versus a slaughterhouse, all this stuff. I was like, well, that's really cool. I'm going to try this for 2 weeks. I'm going to go vegetarian for 2 weeks. So I went for 2 weeks. I said, I feel pretty good. I'll try 2 more weeks. I felt good after 2 more weeks. I said, well, I'm going to go another month. I got to 2 months and I thought, I think I will. I think I won't eat meat anymore. And
you do eat dairy then, correct?
I have a bit. So I'll go out. There'll be some Christmas parties and I'll have some cheese. Again, I'll take my Gluten Guardian before, because the problem that people have generally with that is not lactase. Lactase is the enzyme that most people are familiar about milk, but where a lot of people run into problems is the A1 inflammatory proteins from cow's milk. And my Gluten Guardian will actually take care of the inflammatory protein that causes people distress on that as well. So I take that if I'm going out, the bread and cheese and wine that people like to have when they go out. And
Now let me ask you this, because, we've had people on the show that have said that when they are here in the United States, they cannot have dairy and they can't have gluten. But we've had people who said, but if I go to France, or if I go to Spain, or if I go here, I can have the cheese, I can have the gluten, and I have no problems. Have you experienced that, or have you heard that?
No, it's absolutely true. And I'm going to explain why that is, because many of the foods that they're serving in Europe and other countries, number one, have not been genetically modified. That's a big factor. A lot of our food has been genetically modified. Second thing is they're in a unpasteurized state. So when you get cheese in France, most of it's unpasteurized. The same as the wine doesn't have the sulfites in it, that a lot of the preservatives that we add to the wines here for commercial purposes, but you'll have the naturally occurring enzymes and bacteria that'll break that down. Here you can't have the raw state. So if you have raw milk, then it has the enzymes and probiotics that will actually break that down. It comes with the food. But we pasteurize it, and now you don't have the bacteria, you don't have the enzymes to break that down, and therefore you're stuck. And in those countries, they understand it, they do it, and they reject a lot of the genetically modified foods that we don't have the ability to break down. And that's where people run into problems.
All right. And I know that you are a fan of intermittent fasting. So tell us how long you've been doing this. What's your eating window like? And what kind of feedback have you had from the bodybuilding community? Because I'm telling you right now, like, one of my trainers that I train with, this guy that I work out with, he is just chiseled. And he is like, if he took his shirt off for you, he looks like he's ready for a show at all times. Like, he stays at like 8% body fat. You see what I'm saying? And so, he's huge into the bodybuilding community, and he is definitely one of those, like, he's always trying to say to me, Chantel, you need to eat more times a day. And I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it. So tell us about your experience with the intermittent fasting.
Yeah. So I started out, I had read about fasting protocols 20 years ago and started experimenting it with my own body to kind of rid the toxins out of it. So I started off with literally 1 day fasts, and then that went to 2 day fasts, and then that went to 3 day fasts. And I would take herbs and things like that to kind of help remove all the plaque and stuff out of my system. And I can remember the stuff coming out of me after not eating for a few days. I'm like, whoa, that's hard to believe. And so that eventually evolved into up to 10-day fasts. I did fast on water for 10 days. And I was just doing that as a regular occurrence. I would fast 1 day a week. I would not eat for a period of 24 to 36 hours, which I continue to do today. I do 24 to 36 hours.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like I just drove up from California the other day. So it's a 2-day trip from California to Vancouver. And I didn't eat the whole trip. I just drove and drank water, and that was it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I believe it's and then if I'm and through the week, I'll generally eat between a window between 12 and 6. So for me, with women, I find most women do better if they eat early in the day from a hormonal perspective, and then maybe cut off at, say, 2 o'clock or something like that, just because women's hormones are a little bit different than men. I'm getting older, so I've got more testosterone early in the day that I want to ride that wave until I get to the afternoon, and then I'll start eating.
That's awesome. Now, before we get started with listener questions, we always like to ask our guests, like, what did you eat yesterday? So, like, what time did you start eating? And tell us exactly what you ate.
Yeah, so yesterday afternoon, I went to Whole Foods, and I had a ginormous salad at 2 p.m. was my first meal. So I call it a rainbow salad. The salad had, mixed vegetables, arugula and spinach and things like that, and celery, cabbage, cucumbers, tomatoes, green peppers, some mushrooms, a little bit of walnuts, some pecans, nutritional yeast, essential fatty acid oil, and some apple cider vinegar, some sea salt. So I put all that in together in a big giant bowl, and I ate that. And then at, I guess it was 5:30, I had a bowl of, what was it? It was a pinto bean kind of stew and a kind of a tomatoey sauce, with some nice herbs and everything inside of it. And, oh, I forgot to say, I had a bottle of kombucha at both meals. Okay. Yeah, I took my mass enzymes, and I took my probiotics before each meal, and that was what I had yesterday.
So let me ask you this: do you ever crave something sweet, and if you do, what do you eat?
Yeah, great question. I do, and that's directly correlated. With the level of protein that I require on that day. So what I have found is that if my protein goes too low, I start to crave a lot more sugar. And so for me, I like to have between about 75 grams of protein a day. And if I go below that, because otherwise I'm over to the chocolate aisle. I love chocolate. I got some friends who are just amazing chocolatiers. Kelly at Chocolate Tree in Sedona, Arizona makes amazing almond butter Buddhas that are fantastic. Lulu, you can see her chocolate all over. Like, she's another friend of mine. She makes great chocolate. I love chocolate, and I like to have a piece. Oftentimes after my dinner, just a little piece. Just a little bit, and I get a really high quality product, not something that you gobble down, like something that you just set in your mouth and you let it kind of go through, and you get all the flavors and bouquets. And I've learned that from these chocolate experts. Like usually a raw cacao, a really good one. And
that sounds awesome. I'm ready for a piece of chocolate. All right, well, let's jump right into our listener questions. The first one is from Amy in Virginia Beach. My friend recently purchased a Kangen water system and is a huge fan. Not only does she drink it, but she told me about adjusting different pH levels for things like soaking vegetables, treating moles on her skin, showering. I know it's quite the investment, and I'm wondering about the science behind how it works. Is it really worth the money, or is it just all in her head? She tells me it's not just about the pH, but also the ionization that breaks the water molecules down. Amy in Virginia Beach.
Here's the fact on fact. I purchased my Enagic machine, I guess in 2007, and I did extensive testing on it. And basically I saw that with myself and the clients I used, they could train harder, faster, longer, more frequently. They recovered better. And at the time, the science was not in humans. But recently, Dr. Horst Filzer, he's a Harvard medical surgeon who taught, I think, 38 department heads in the United States. He just did human trials with this water. I was just with him in Las Vegas a few weeks ago, and he has proven that Kangen water produced by Enagic machines increases mitochondrial energy, that's the energy units in the body, serves as an antioxidant in the body, which removes the inflammation, the silent killer that gets all the disease, and also reduces delayed onset muscle soreness from exercise and training, which is something I knew, but I didn't run all the studies. And he did this in human studies. I think you're going to see it all over. It's, the company's been around for a long time. I travel with that unit. It's inconvenient. I put it in my carry-on bag, and I put a shower unit they make in my carry-on bag that I travel around the world because I don't want chlorine and fluoride inside my body, because that messes up thyroid production, which is a big issue, particularly amongst women, because fluoride and chlorine interact iodine. It removes, you can remove that out of it. But basically, it turns your regular water into 5 different types of water at the touch of a button. So you can make a 2.5 pH, which will kill any bacteria off. So I use it as an antiseptic. It makes a 5.5. You can spray your skin. It's toner. So women who use toner, you don't need that. You use this 5.5 water. It makes a 3 different types of alkaline water, which is, it's not really the alkaline. There's a lot of people out there thinking alkaline water is a big deal. I don't think that's the benefit. It's the fresh electrical-based antioxidants that are produced by electrolysis. Basically, it's electrical ions that go into your body and take out inflammation. And then there's 11.5, which is the last part of the question. That particular water, what that does, it's so soft, right? It will actually emulsify oil. Now, why is that important? Well, on our fruits and vegetables, we get herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides. Okay, those are directed to interrupt the enzymatic activity and the bacteria inside those plants or on those plants. Now, what happens when you eat that? It's going to mess up the enzyme production in the bacteria. It kills the bugs this way. The question is, how much does it need this? And I do believe that a lot of gut health, a lot of digestive health related illnesses are related to the chemicals that are on food. The USDA allows, even on organics, allows 50 different chemicals on that food. If organics traveled in a truck with chemical or like conventionally grown foods, they spray bomb them oftentimes, and your organics can get these chemicals. So there's all these different areas. And I wash my fruits and vegetables, my salads and stuff, and you'll see this goop come off them. Now you can't get that off with a spray, but 11.5 pH oil, and that's why I use it. And I think it's an amazing.
Now, do you have it just in your kitchen, or do you have it like in your shower and in your bathroom?
Yeah, I got it in. I got the shower unit for my shower. I mean, I think everybody should at the least put a chlorine filter on their showers. That the first thing they ought to do to start. Those are like $20. I got the shower unit. I got the water unit, and I travel with them everywhere because I want to make sure I got good water. And I want to make sure I'm not.
So wait a minute. I have one for my kitchen. I don't have one in any other place. But I didn't know you could travel with it.
Oh yeah. I put it right in my carry-on bag.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, well, the thing is I have a little attachment set that hooks up to almost any single attach. Like I've hooked this stuff up to garden hoses. I've hooked this stuff up into hotel. Like I've done some crazy things getting my water, because I know that, outside of diet aside, the number 1 nutrient you need in your body is air. And the number 2 nutrient is water. And the problem is most of the water people are drinking are full of plastics if it's in plastic bottles, or it's full of chemicals if it's coming out of a tap. So where does that leave a person to do? Might as well get a machine. And so I've spent over $500,000 on my body for different health technologies. I think it was the best investment I made.
Hey guys, we absolutely love getting your questions into the podcast, but we're also interested in your journey. So if you've started intermittent fasting and have some success, or even struggling a little bit, we want to hear about it. Email me your intermittent fasting stories to chantel@chantelrayway.com. Now back to the show. All right, this is from Claire in Nevada. I've been researching proteolytic enzymes because I heard that they can be so good for inflammation that I deal with, as well as irritable bowel syndrome. Is it safe to take these while I'm doing my longer 24 to 48 hour fasts? Also, are there any particular brands that you recommend? And what are some foods that I can eat which are natural sources of these powerful enzymes?
Yeah. Okay. So great question. And she's right that proteolytic enzymes are one of the best ways to treat inflammation inside the body, because we get inflammation from inflammatory proteins that get into our digestive system and also into our blood. So we went out and I developed a proteolytic enzyme for this exact reason. So let me break down what you're looking for in a proteolytic enzyme. Number one, it should have a multi-stage protease. Protease is the enzyme that uses to break it down, because when you go through digestion, there's the pH changes from, say, 7 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 as the stomach acid comes in. And so you want an enzymes that work in all of those ranges. So we put, for example, 5 different proteases. You want a cultured enzyme. So people will go to the store and buy a $5 bromelain or papain. That's just an enzyme that's found in food. With a cultured enzyme, you're going to get something that's anywhere from 100 to 1,000 times more powerful than a proteolytic enzyme. The third thing that you want to make sure that you're looking for, that there's no preservatives or chemical agents like that. You'll see magnesium stearate.
Yes.
Like that.
And magnesium stearate will make you sick as a dog. If you take magnesium stearate while you're fasting, that is the number one thing that literally, you know how people take vitamins or supplements or whatever? I say to you, if you take it on an empty stomach and you feel nauseous, ding, 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 ding. That means that this particular product that you bought has magnesium stearate and this additive and this and that and all these things. And that's why you're nauseous. If this is a food-based supplement with true enzymes, you shouldn't be nauseous.
You're 100% correct on that. And so, and then you want to make sure that you have things like astrazyme is an agent that was developed in China off the astragalus root, which enhances the effects of proteolytic enzymes, or all enzymes actually. So it'll increase its benefits by 30 to 50%. And all those things are fantastic. I do use mass enzymes, which is the ones we produce. Mass enzymes, by the way, is the strongest proteolytic enzyme on the market today. I know it because I'm pretty deep in the industry, and that's why we cultivated that. 100,000 huts per serving. So basically, I take anywhere from 25 to 35 of these in divided dosages on my fasting. And what it does is it cleans out my liver. It enhances the removal of any buildup that's inside my body, and it's keeps your brain super clear. So it just amplifies the effects of any fast.
That is awesome. I love that. Now, on your site, obviously, like when you go to your homepage, the very first thing that you see is your Gluten Guardian. That must be just like your number one bestseller, right?
It's actually, we introduced that this year. It's number 3 on our list. Our first 2 is mass enzymes and P3OM, but Gluten Guardian's coming up quickly.
Okay, so go over the number 1 and the number 2 and exactly what are they for?
Yeah. So mass enzymes is enzymes for the masses. Basically, for any single person, it is the strongest proteolytic enzyme formulation on the planet today. It contains 15 different enzymes. It's got the astrazyme. It's basically more digestive power per capsule than anybody out on the market. It's all been cultured. It's been well designed. We've been selling that one for 14 years. That's how I rebuilt my own body. P3OM is we call it the Navy SEALs of probiotics. It's a proteolytic probiotic. It's a transient strain that goes through the entire system. It gets undigested protein in your brain, in your bloods, and your toenails, and goes through the whole system. It kills off the bad guys. It kills viruses. It's super amazing strain, and it's been patented. So basically, we took it through a process, and basically that's a way to get your gut bacteria back in order. And then Gluten Guardian, which we introduced earlier this year, the first this year, it's now number 3. It's like rising up the ranks because people who suffer from gluten insensitivity or sensitivity, they struggle along, and the bottom line is they really want to get that out of their life. We developed that DPP4 that breaks down the gluten. So you go to a social occasion, you go to the family event that you might get exposed to it, take 3 or 4 of those caps and you're good to go.
That's awesome. Okay, next question is from Carter in Gainesville. I had a severe sinus infection that just wouldn't go away. My doctor insisted on putting me on an antibiotic. I know I shouldn't take antibiotics and I hate taking them and I didn't want to do it, but it actually did help clear me up. What can I do to take to get my gut back to normal after the antibiotics, and how fast should I take them?
Yeah, here's a great thing, and I want to qualify something that's very, very important, because there's a lot of people in the holistic health industry who are really down on antibiotics. And I think you don't want to get into that. When you need an antibiotic, it's there to take the dosage that your doctor recommends, take it to the end of the time, wipe out whatever bacteria strain that you got to kill off, because they're good at that. But then afterwards, you want to enter into a period of rebuilding your gut health, because it'll wipe out the good, the bad, and the ugly, as I say, in your digestive system. I actually had a friend in the holistic health industry who refused to take an antibiotic for a little infection. He was the president of a really large company. He ended up dying because he refused to take antibiotics. And you just take them, get done, and then when you get back, I would say reintroduce into your diet fermented foods. It's something that I eat virtually every single day, ones that are relative to your diet. And then the other thing is you want to add in a single strain of probiotics like the P through M to wipe out any bad guys that might have proliferated. And then try and find yourself an implant strain that will work. I would select single probiotics over multi-strains, because most of the multi-strains don't work because they compete, or they don't have the right prebiotics or postbiotics to make them take a hold as far as an implant strain.
All right, this next one's from Anonymous. This is so gross, but something I'm very curious about. I recently read something in Women's Health about different poop colors revealing different health issues or areas of concern. Is this really true? If so, what should I be looking out for, and what are some signs of a really, really good, healthy poop? Anonymous.
It's interesting. This is one of the most fascinating topics that are out there, and one of the ones that's most searched online. People don't want to talk about it. But generally, the rule of thumb is for every meal that you eat, you should be having a bowel movement.
I love that. And do you know my mom, who is in amazing health? I'll have to show you a picture of her. She is looks like $1 million and just in such great health. But that's her. Like, that's what she says. She poops after every meal. She has a bowel movement.
Yeah, same here. Now, coloring, and there's all these topics about color. Does it float? Does it sink? Which is better? And that's going to be dependent basically on the diet that you have. The more fats that you have inside your diet, the easier it's going to float. The less fats you have in your diet, the more it's going to sink. So if you're on a keto diet, it's going to be very different than if you're on a vegetarian diet. So fiber is going to influence the color. So depending on your diet is going to determine the colors. What you do want to avoid is anything that is really, really black or dark. And you'll see that oftentimes if you're doing a cleanse. Kind of looks like the old spin-off of the transport trucks. You see the tires on the side of the road, you get rid of that mucoid plaque. That's a good thing to get out. But if you're constantly like that, there's probably some areas that you want to work on. Obviously, if you get any white colored, if it's whitish, you're probably dumping some mucus lining out there. That could be an issue. And obviously blood. Those are the three things that you work for: blood, white, or really black.
And gray too, like a light yes. Gray or a really light brown. Yeah. Okay, so this is from Laura in Western Branch. I recently saw an article about Roundup pesticide being traced to cancer, which is scary. I buy about 90% organic produce, but on your podcast the other day, I even heard that some produce from a farmer's market could have pesticides on it. How can I know that what I'm buying is safe, and how do you recommend that I wash my produce in order to be extra sure? I saw something on Facebook the other day about a lawsuit that someone sued the company Roundup for his cancer and won. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, it's a groundbreaking trial that they won that because it's a serious chemical. It was used as Agent Orange in the Vietnam War, and they used it to kill bugs. It's made by a company called Monsanto. which is a very aggressive company, deeply in bed with the deep state at the government levels and stuff, particularly in the Obama administration. They've now been bought by Bayer, like the makers of aspirin in Germany. So it's a big issue. The only way that you can be sure that you get it off your vegetables is to wash your vegetables in 11.5 pH water, which you can produce with a magic machine, which will emulsify the oil, because these come on an oil base. So washing your vegetables with regular water won't emulsify oil and won't get it off. It's a serious issue. And across the prairies in Canada, there is a lot of these chemicals that were used throughout farming culture, and the incidence of all sorts of diseases which are based on that, I think, are definitely correlated to the use of Roundup. So the only way to get it off is 11.5 that I'm aware of.
Yeah, great. All right, Rebecca in North Carolina. This question is so controversial. Literally every person or expert says something completely different about this with every article and book that I've read on this subject. What is the healthy number of times to go to the bathroom per day, per week? I hear so many people say they go every day, and that is just not the case for me. I'm lucky to go 3 times a week. I feel fine, and I have no symptoms to lead me to believe that I have gut issues otherwise. Is this different for everyone, or should you be going once a day, or after every meal? Rebecca in North Carolina.
It's a great question. I'm a firm believer that it's however many meals you're eating, is that how many times you should go to the bathroom. It's pretty simple. Unless you're a breatharian, like the stigmatist Therese Newman or something like that, where you don't eat, then it would make sense. But the bottom line is, if you're not, you may not be experiencing the level of health that you could. So, and I think that's one of the reasons why there's such a variance. I mean, you get a bodybuilder that eats 6-7 times a day versus someone who's intermittent fasting that's eating only once a day or twice a day. Well, it's going to be a difference in the frequency that they go to the bathroom. So it's really, that's why you get these variances.
Well, awesome. Well, tell everyone the website one more time where they can get those free videos that you were talking about.
Yeah, so basically if you go to BiOptimizers.com/wasteaway, just click on that link, and I'm going to give all your listeners our free awesome health course. It's 84 days you can do it, or you can do it all in a weekend, or you can do it over a whole year. It's 5 to 15 minute videos. You can select which ones you want, and it basically will show you how to rebuild your digestion. We also have interviews with my naturopathic physician, Dr. Katrine Volinsky, where we deal with acid reflux, we deal with constipation, we deal with probiotics, we deal with all these different conditions, gas, bloating, digestive issues, where I go in and she not only says take these products, but she says, here's why it happens. Here's the things that you can do. Here's the foods that you eat, all that sort of stuff. It's great value. And it's like having your own naturopathic physician on those specific digestive issues, and you get it all for free.
That's awesome. Well, that is so generous of you. And you just are making such a huge impact for our community, and just thank you so much for your time today. It was an absolute honor having you on the show. So thank you so much.
Great to be here, and thanks for spreading the message.
And if you have a question that you want answered, go to questions@chantelrayway.com. See you next time. Bye-bye.